Hey, give me a minute. I'm playing this crazy game and I gotta sprinkle some magic powder on the chicken. All right. What can I do for you?
Now, little one, don't you have something you've been waiting since October to say to your audience?
You say that as if I have an audience to begin with. Have you seen my analytics?
You of all people should know better than to argue with me. Besides, you know that videos featuring attractive women in them skyrocket in views.
Only if the attractive woman isn't a chibi-styled sprite. Greetings everyone old and new, welcome to Haseo Reviews, and this time I'm, graciously joined by the star of one of my highest viewed videos, Bayonetta.
It seems our dear little Haseo made the error of not covering my sequel during the holidays, despite it presenting him a perfect opportunity to make his first Christmas special. So, I decided to pop by and remind him of an important life lesson.
Don't f*** with a witch?
Yes, but more importantly, a good man always finishes what he starts.
And with that, we segue into Bayonetta 2, which spent a good 3 years in development hell, eventually being temporarily cancelled following the first game's publisher, Sega, undergoing some internal restructuring. Couple that with Microsoft and Sony both refusing to pick up the franchise from Sega, and it seemed like everyone's favorite witch would never see the light of day again.
That was until September 13th, 2012, when a seemingly innocuous Nintendo Direct set the internet ablaze with the announcement that nobody could have ever predicted.
Bayonetta 2 was not only officially in production, accompanied with a trailer showing off her new design, it was being funded and published by Nintendo as a desperately needed exclusive for their dead-on-arrival Wii U console. Reception to this announcement was all over the place, ranging from excitement that one of Platinum's cult classics was finally getting a sequel, to pitchforks and torches aimed at Platinum and Nintendo for daring to make the sequel to said cult classic exclusive to a console that was, to put it mildly, underperforming and stained by the Wii's family-friendly, casual-oriented image. Nevertheless, Bayonetta 2 was released in a 2-pack with the first Bayonetta in 2014, and later ported to the Nintendo Switch in 2018, which is the version I'll be reviewing.
It seems you have this covered adequately enough. Excuse me while I take care of some important business.
I don't know why, but I feel this sudden, creeping dread. Our story begins with Father Balder, of all people, crawling from the wreckage of Jubileus immediately following the ending of the first game. We see some kind of spirit trying to escape his body, which he uses his last ounces of strength to contain before finally dying. Cut ahead an unspecified amount of time later to Christmas Eve, where a news broadcast reports that natural disasters are occurring worldwide. Bayonetta and Enzo are doing some last-minute Christmas shopping when Jeanne shows up, rocking a new look consisting of a red leather bodysuit and long hair to further contrast her appearance with Bayonetta. Jeanne goes on to explain that the angels of Paradiso have been uncharacteristically quiet lately, and at the same time, the demons of Inferno are growing restless. Something's not quite right with the world, and she's investigating to find out just what it could be. Suddenly, a stunt fighter jet nearly crashes into a building, but Bayonetta reacts just in time to kick it out of the way, jumping into action to combat the angels that commandeered the jet and revealing her new design for this game. This section serves as a tutorial where it's immediately clear that several aspects of Bayonetta 1 have been tightened up here. Witch time is easier to activate due to a less strict timing window, your magic meter appears to fill up faster, and your combos are both more varied and easier to execute. After clearing out the first wave of enemies, we get another cutscene where Santa Rodin shows up to give Bayonetta her new primary weapons for this game, a quartet of pistols called Love is Blue. And no, I don't mean Rodin is just dressed as Santa. This game confirms that he is Santa. Going back to gameplay, we're shown that Bayonetta has a brand new ability in this entry known as Umbran Climax. One of my complaints with the first game was that magic was strictly used for torture attacks instead of anything more useful in combat, which this game solves by giving Bayonetta a sort of double trigger mode, where her attack power is drastically increased and she gradually regains health. This adds a whole new layer of strategy to every encounter, as you need a full bar of magic in order to activate Umbran Climax, and you can't deactivate it on command, meaning you'll need to decide when is the best time to use her super mode, and when you should save it for later. Bayonetta battles her way across the city, slaughtering angels along the way, eventually ending in a boss fight that's capped off with a traditional Climax QTE with her Gamora familiar from the first game. QTEs have been made much more forgiving in Bayonetta 2, requiring considerably less button mashing to complete, and removing the do-or-die ones entirely. Now the tutorial is over and Oh. Well, that was unexpected. Yes, Bayonetta 2 not only has our titular witch fighting angels, but occasionally facing off against demons as well. And with this, we're thrust into another new mechanic, flying battles. In these sections, Bayonetta can move all around the screen to dodge attacks and projectiles from the enemy she's facing, and move in closer to deal damage. Otherwise, they control just like regular combat sections, except the ability to jump is removed for obvious reasons. After defeating Gamora, Bayonetta finishes him off with one of her new summons for this game, a Cerberus named Lavalas, who takes over for Gamora's chomping duties. These new demon summons include Baal, a frog that swallows enemies whole, Hydra, who replaces Scolipede for constricting and crushing finishers, and Diomedes, a giant unicorn with a sword for a horn, which may just be the most awesome thing I've said all year. Gamora's finished off, and we're shown a scene where a mysterious figure clad in blue summons what appears to be a Lumen Sage, offering him a chance at some unspecified revenge. Thanks, now I have 2 holes that I need to get fixed. So what, are you just gonna stand there and watch me now?
I have to make sure you're doing your job, love. After all, you don't want to make me angry, do you?
Point taken. Back at Rodin's bar, Rodin performs a ritual to preserve Jeanne's body in the hopes that it will keep her from fully dying just for a little bit longer.
Just so happens that your friend here is only mostly dead. There's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead.
Bayonetta, determined not to let her childhood friend die, decides that she's going to scour hell itself to reclaim Jeanne's soul, which requires her to travel to the holy mountain Fimbulventer, which is said to house entrances to heaven and hell at its peak. She forcefully ropes Enzo into taking her to Noatun, the city at the foot of the mountain, abandoning him along the way. Noatun is our primary setting for this adventure, similar to how most of the first Bayonetta took place in Vigrid. As soon as Bayonetta lands, we're given free reign to explore the town, while also demonstrating a few more new mechanics. Bayonetta can travel underwater now, where her movement is slowed down and her jump height is increased while her descent is decreased. Standard video game underwater physics. In addition to the Umbran resting places from the first game returning to house items and upgrades, Bayonetta 2 introduces broken resting places. After examining them, 5 pieces spawn in the immediate area, usually in a straight line, and you're tasked with collecting them all before time runs out, a task made significantly easier due to Bayonetta retaining the Panther Within transformation from the first game as a core part of her moveset, allowing her to run faster and jump farther. In the same area of Noatun, you'll most likely find your first Muspelheim, this game's version of the Alfheim challenges from Bayonetta 1, although the Muspelheim challenges tend to be far easier than the Alfheim ones. Shortly into the first level, you'll come across a portal to Rodin's bar, where you can buy new combat techniques, items, costumes, and weapons. The Switch version also adds amiibo support, allowing you to scan any amiibo figurine to either unlock new costumes or get a randomized amount of halos and healing items, allowing you to become insanely overpowered very early on if you have a decently sized amiibo collection. A neat little detail is that depending on what figure you scan, you might get a unique message, like Rodin commenting on how Hyrule is famous even in hell, or how he'd love to work with Samus from Metroid sometime. As you might have noticed already, Bayonetta 2's first main level does a fantastic job of gradually introducing new mechanics to the player all within a short time. With a few exceptions, everything you need to know to beat the game is taught to you either here or in the prologue sequence, negating the need to constantly bombard the player with tutorials throughout the game. Eventually, Bayonetta encounters a hooded boy battling a group of angels on his own, mumbling to himself about how he has to get to Fimbulventer. This boy is Loki, and he's going to be our child surrogate to bring out Bayonetta's maternal instincts, similar to the role that Cereza played in the first game. After battling more angels, the game introduces one more main mechanic returning from the first game, angelic hymns, which can be taken to Rodin to forge new weapons, ranging from a pair of swords, to a bow that shoots demonic insects, to a pair of flamethrowers, a triple-bladed scythe, a warhammer, and a pair of chainsaws that can be used as skates. She's also got a new glide ability that allows her to slow her descent by holding the jump button. Bayonetta finds Loki trapped under some rubble, and they strike a deal. Loki will guide Bayonetta up Fimbulventer, and Bayonetta will ward off any angels that try to attack him. The next level starts, and we're reintroduced to Luca, sporting a new pair of glasses that allow him to see people and objects in Purgatorio, and a much friendlier demeanor towards Bayonetta. He's also this game's comic relief, constantly blundering while trying to be a badass. Loki has his first of many visions of another mysterious boy that looks and sounds just like him, which usually trigger a repressed memory within him. There's not much to say about this stage, except that completing it gives us a new collectible, Tagverse cards, used in the online multiplayer mode, which I'll delve into later. Loki is kidnapped by angels, Bayonetta defeats them, the two are separated, and Loki ends up running into the Lumen Sage from earlier, who immediately attacks him. Bayonetta arrives just in time to fight off the Sage in one of the best fights of the entire game. Similar to the Jean battle from the first game in that the boss has similar abilities to the player, except the Sage has a more light and peacock-themed flair, along with summoning the Cardinal Virtue Angels from the first game to battle Bayonetta's demons. After the battle, Loki uses his powers to grant Bayonetta a new transformation, a snake form that allows her to travel through water faster than before. After bringing Loki to dry land, the two bond a little in their own unique way, with the two constantly throwing shade at each other. We also learned that Loki has amnesia, similar to how Bayonetta couldn't remember her past in the first game. Loki doesn't even know for sure why he needs to go to Fimbulventr so urgently, apart from this feeling that tells him it's important. Luca pops up again and tells Bayonetta the legend of Aesir, a god that ruled over the Chaos Realm that humanity inhabits. He pitied humanity's naivete, and as such, split his power into the eyes of the world, and entrusted each eye to the Lumen Sages and the Umbra Witches. Bayonetta 1 players should have some alarm bells ringing in their heads right about now. Suddenly, angels begin attacking, and we smash cut to a short sequence where we actually control Loki instead of Bayonetta. He can't do much besides run and throw cards at the giant angel chasing him, but still a fun sequence. Another angel destroys the bridge to Fimbulventr, leading into a boss fight, ending with the boss using the last of his strength to create a void in the ground that sucks Bayonetta and Loki in. You know, you've been unusually quiet during all this, and it's starting to freak me out.
I don't like to waste words, love. Now either get back to the review, or you'll have to be punished.
Noted. In a subterranean cavern, Loki finds an ancient relic called the Ark, which he then activates to give him and Bayonetta a faster way to get to the gates of hell. Unfortunately for them, they're attacked along the way by a giant demon, leading into a boss fight which ends with the Ark destroyed and Bayonetta and Loki swallowed whole. We actually get to explore the inside of the demon, and one of the first changes you'll likely notice is that when combating the forces of Inferno, they'll drop Devil May Cry-styled orbs instead of halos that the angels drop when defeated. They're both functionally identical, just adding to your total currency to spend in Radahn's bar, but still a welcome inclusion to give demons their own loot instead of just copy-pasting what the angels drop. Bayonetta comes across Loki deeper in the demon's body, along with the returning Lumen Sage. Bayonetta and the Sage duke it out again, and Bayonetta notices that the Sage not only has the right eye of light, he's also wearing the charm that Bayonetta's mother gave her. The Sage retreats, and our two heroes arrive at the gates of hell. After breaking the seal off the gates with a neat callback to the Golem finisher from Bayonetta 1, the mysterious Blue-Robed Man and the Lumen Sage appear, with the Sage battling Loki and the man, known here as the Prophet, battling Bayonetta. It's during this fight that I discovered another quality of life improvement that Bayonetta 2 makes over Bayonetta 1, namely that using healing items doesn't detract from your final score, so feel free to stockpile those green lollipops and use them when needed. Bayonetta is unable to defeat the Prophet, and Loki is similarly outmatched by the Lumen Sage. The Prophet shows Bayonetta a vision of what appears to be Loki killing her mother 500 years ago. Loki, seeing no options left, opens the gates of hell as an impromptu distraction to get them to safety. Bayonetta and Loki are separated again, and realizing she doesn't have much time left, she decides to focus on rescuing Jean's soul before it's completely consumed. She runs into Radahn along the way, who teams up with her to battle a swarm of demons, and holy sh**, is Radahn overpowered. You can seriously just stand there for the entire fight if you want to, because Radahn has a ton of AoE attacks that act as one-hit kills, even against demons that were previously fought as mini-bosses. Bayonetta eventually arrives at the lair of Al-Ra'un, a demon who fancies herself as the new ruler of hell, has already eaten Jean's soul, and bears a grudge against Madama Butterfly, the main demon that Bayonetta has a pact with. Can we take a minute to talk about the attention to detail in this series? All the angels and demons in the Bayonetta games exclusively speak in Enochian, a real-world ancient language that's supposedly spoken by angels. This means that when Al-Ra'un calls Bayonetta a filthy bitch, the writers had to look up what the closest phrase to that would be in Enochian rather than just have her speak in English. Al-Ra'un mutates into a second, more powerful form, but Bayonetta is able to tear a hole in Al-Ra'un's body, freeing Jean's soul and draining the demon of her power. Before Bayonetta can finish her off, Radahn intervenes, as Al-Ra'un was Radahn's next target to turn into a weapon. Bayonetta revives Jean, showing a rare moment of genuine emotion while she begs Jean to wake up before returning to her her usual snarky attitude once Jean comes to. This is a narrative element that pops up in several areas, showing us cracks in Bayonetta's invincible facade. If you weren't a fan of Bayonetta's characterization as borderline invincible and debatably sociopathic in the first game, Bayonetta 2 shows that she's still human deep down, and still has all the emotional weaknesses that come with being human. Rodin turns Alrune into Bayonetta's final weapon, the Thorned Whip Alruna, and Bayonetta sets off to find Loki. Soon enough, Bayonetta comes across Loki dueling the Lumen Sage, and Bayonetta summons Diomedes to reach them in time. This is our stand-in for the motorcycle sequence in Bayonetta 1, except it controls much better, and is overall far better designed. Diomedes doesn't drift like the motorcycle did, there's no do-or-die QuickTime events to cut your playtime short, and the entire sequence is shorter to boot. After reaching Loki, the Lumen Sage finally removes his mask, and, just in case you couldn't figure it out from all the hints dropped throughout the story, the boss title seals it. The masked Lumen is actually a young Baldur, plucked from 500 years in the past before his start of darkness, and duped by the Prophet to hunt Loki. Before the final blow can be dealt, Loki loses control of his powers, warping Bayonetta and Baldur out of hell. Bayonetta finds herself in Vigrid 500 years ago, on the night of the witch hunts that wiped out most of the Umbra witch clan. Staying true to the Bayonetta timeline, all of the enemies we encounter in these next few stages are recycled from Bayonetta 1. Again, nice attention to detail. Bayonetta finds herself surrounded by angels, but then... Okay, this is the coolest thing ever. Bayonetta teams up with her mother. Both of them know who each other are, but don't have time to make a big deal out of it, because there's angels to slay and witches to save. And Rosa's not just a useless AI companion, she's invincible and is actually able to damage enemies, a massive improvement over the earlier sections where Loki tags along with you. She even joins in on torture attacks and climaxes. And then in the next level, okay, that does it. Bayonetta 2 is the most balls-to-the-wall awesome thing that mankind has been blessed with. Unfortunately, the mecha battle action doesn't last for long, but in one final bit of blatant nostalgia cash-in, we get a shot-for-shot reenactment of the opening to Bayonetta 1, right down to the music track. The awesomeness is sadly interrupted, though, when Bayonetta runs into Loki, except it clearly isn't Loki because he acts suspicious as f*** and is clearly wearing a different outfit. This is Lopter, and he's the one who's been taunting Loki through those flashbacks he's been plagued with. One boss fight later, we witness the final moments shared between Baldur and Rosa, with Bayonetta seizing this opportunity to turn Baldur to her side. See, I want to save this whole discussion for this part of the review. Bayonetta 2 does a lot to flesh out Baldur compared to the first game, where he was portrayed as nothing more than a genocidal maniac. Here we find out that he genuinely used to be a good man, but he was tricked by the very angels his clan serves into carrying out the witch hunts, and the death of Rosa broke his spirit, making him easy to corrupt. Platinum tends not to dedicate much time into giving their antagonists a thorough backstory, so I'm glad that Bayonetta 2 rectified that. Meanwhile, back in the present, Loki has escaped hell on his own and runs into Luca, begging him to take him to the top of Fimbulventer because he's now regained all of his memories. Bayonetta and Baldur hitch a ride on a jet flown by Jean to get to Fimbulventer as quickly as possible, teaming up in a sequence modeled after the classic Sega arcade game Afterburner to mow down legions of demons and angels that have joined forces to stop our heroes from reaching their destination. This section is far less punishing than the Space Harrier-styled sequence from Bayonetta 1, as it's more brightly lit and you have better defensive options, although I never really found a use for Baldur's melee attack, as it's far too slow to use against the fast-moving enemies and projectiles. Loki and Luca are the first to arrive at Fimbulventer, where they're attacked by the Prophet, now revealed to be a grown-up Lopter. Bayonetta and Baldur show up soon after, and Lopter breaks into the mandatory villainous mode of rant about how he and Loki are two separate halves of Aesir, the god of chaos that Bayonetta was told about earlier, and Loki is the good half who retained all of Aesir's sovereign powers over creation and time manipulation, while Lopter is the evil half who is left with nothing. He plans to recover Loki's sovereign power, along with the eyes of the world, and reclaim his role as ruler of the chaos dimension. He manages to absorb the right eye from Baldur and the sovereign power from Loki, and Bayonetta battles him before eventually succumbing to Lopter as well. With all of his powers restored, he transforms into Aesir and the final battle ensues. It's not as visually impressive as the final battle against Jubileus in Bayonetta 1 was, since Aesir is roughly the same size as Bayonetta rather than towering over her. Bayonetta wears Aesir down. Meanwhile, Loki reveals that Lopter was too arrogant to notice he left Loki with his most dangerous power, the power of nothingness. Using this ability, he erases the eyes of the world from existence, sapping Lopter of all his power, and leaving him as nothing but a mortal man. Bayonetta and Baldur team up to finish the Mad God off, ending it by combining their light and dark magic to summon Omne, who proceeds to dropkick Lopter's body and soul apart, with the body sent flying into this controllable helplessness segment where you guide it into a Gamora mount that Jean summoned. Lopter isn't quite defeated just yet, however, as his spirit still remains, and plans to escape to another time to begin his plan anew. Before Lopter's spirit escapes, Baldur seals it within his own body, becoming a living vessel for a being of pure evil. Before he departs to another time and place to make sure everyone stays safe, Baldur reveals they knew all along that Bayonetta was his daughter, and requests for her to just once call him Daddy. After she does so, he disappears, ending Lopter's threat to the world. With Lopter defeated, Loki declares that humanity is now in control of its own destiny, and that he'll be retiring from his role as the Sovereign One that rules over the realm of chaos. Loki then departs in a flash of light. Several days pass, the world is back to normal, and Bayonetta and Jean are out shopping again. Bayonetta notices a baby carriage pass by that drops one of Loki's cards, implying that Loki decided to reincarnate as a regular human, now that the world doesn't need him anymore. Bayonetta realizes she forgot all about Enzo, and, right on cue, Enzo comes barreling out of the sky, still trapped in the plane he flew to Noatun in. Bayonetta and Jean save him and battle some more angels. Bam! Credits. And then a post-credit scene showing that Baldur has been completely consumed by Lopter's evil influence, donning the half-mask he wore in Bayonetta 1, setting up the events of the first game. Bayonetta 2 massively improves on areas that Bayonetta 1 faltered in, offering a much more balanced experience overall. The story is more engaging, the combat is tighter and more focused, there are no more random difficulty spikes and beginner's traps, and the vast array of unlockables in both single-player and multiplayer offer more replayability than the original Bayonetta. If I had to criticize anything though, I'd not have much trouble coming up with complaints. The flying battles are more of a visual spectacle than a fun gameplay experience. Underwater battles are awkward to control. The difficulty as a whole is so far lower than the first Bayonetta that I was able to complete the entire game on normal difficulty without ever coming close to dying once. And the music isn't nearly as memorable as the first game. Sorry, but Moon River is no Fly Me to the Moon. There, are you satisfied now?
Well, for someone who was quite literally forced to hack together a review at gunpoint, I must admit you did an adequate job.
Great! So can you leave now? I have other stuff I need to do, like Transformers Armada Bridged, and the Sonic 06 fan-dub, and the Danganronpa fan-dub, and the upcoming Metal Gear Solid fan-dub.
However, adequate doesn't satisfy me, so I'm afraid you'll have to die.
Wait, what? What's going to happen to Haseo now that he's been shot and heckin' killed? Tune in next time to find out. This was a fun one to put together. I'd like to thank my cousin, Miss Palindrome, for taking time out of her day to provide the voice of Bayonetta for this video. Go check her out in other projects or on her own channel, which I'll link up here if you want to see more of her stuff. I've got a whole bunch of videos lined up, ready to get made to fill up the next few weeks, beginning my first whole story arc, so look forward to that if that at all interests you. Usual stuff, if you like this video, then consider giving it a like. If you like this video and want to see more of this kind of stuff, subscribe and hit the bell. I could really use that. If you want to support me financially, then you can either do Ko-fi or Patreon or PayPal, whichever you want to do. I'm not requiring that from anybody. There's no gated off content or anything like that. It's just a little bonus thing if you want to support me more directly. And all in all, this was fun to put together, and hopefully, fingers crossed, 2020 won't continue to screw me over like it has for the entire year. See you guys later. Haseo out.